In particular, one year he took us up there and we all caught a ton of fish. And he didn't tell us at the time, but he had called ahead the Division of Wildlife to find out where they were stocking. And sure enough, it was Lincoln Creek. And not only had it just been stocked, but the stocking lever had jammed and they had dumped a whole truckload of rainbow trout into this one stretch of river that the Parks and Wildlife guy pointed him to. So my whole fishing premise is, or origin story is built on a lie.
Welcome to Guys Fishing Weekly. We don't just fish, we hook.
What's up,
Eddie?
What's going on,
How
buddy?
are you, brother? I'm chilling, bro. What are you up to?
Oh man, just finishing up another great weekend of work.
Wait. Another great week of work?
Well, weekend of work.
Weekend of work? You worked this weekend?
Well, I got stuff done around the house. You know, one of those weekends where you just
yeah.
crush in productivity. You know,
honeydew weekend. Yeah, honeydew work.
it was more of a self-imposed, like, you got to get some stuff off the list, even your list. Not this was an all around
Nice.
Get stuff done effort.
Even the family list is the honeydew list. I don't care. Yeah, it's all for the betterment of everyone.
For the betterment of everyone. It
That's
was
right. Good.
So yeah, it was a very productive weekend. Got a little hot towards the end. It's 101 out today, which is kind of crazy. So I'm not going outside.
Good. Avoid that. Avoid all outsideness.
Yep.
How are you going to train?
Well, today became a rest day today.
Hello, treadmill.
Yeah, right. Tomorrow I'll get out early, but yeah, today was a weather-induced rest day.
Excellent.
What about you? What have you been up to?
Normalizing. Yeah. I'm going to jump in. Well, let's just go to it. I'm just going to go celebration because that's kind of like what I did this week, and it kind of bleeds into that.
Okay.
So here's what I'm celebrating. We dropped my son off at college. It was a successful drop-off, and it was great. We got him down there. It was on Monday last week, and so we got him down there, and the whole fam came. So my oldest was down. All five of us went and took him down there. They had some time driving down there in the car together, which was awesome. You know, the three of them had some time together, goofing off and being funny and having some quality time. So, yeah, so that was all great. And we got him set up and said our goodbyes, which was brutal, difficult. We've talked about it before, but it's that kind of, I'm celebrating the fact that he is on his own for the first time and kind of doing that. And it was all good. And all of my texts this week with him have been really good and positive stuff. So he seems to be doing just fine. So, yeah, so that's my celebration,
that's awesome.
Dude. So, yeah, so this weekend was saying goodbye to Annie. She left. And so there's been some goodbyes and some recalibrating of things. And so, yeah, so that was my weekend was full of, keeping busy doing stuff around here as well, but kind of managing, help my daughter in softball games and her. So, yeah, so it's good. Everything is good celebration of that.
Getting into a groove now.
Yes, absolutely. The new normal of that. How about you, dude? What are you celebrating?
I am celebrating, although I don't know if it should be a celebration, but I signed up for a 6-week fly tying course, I guess.
Yes!
It's not 6 straight weeks of fly tying. It's one night a week for 6 weeks.
6-week
fly tying course sounds a lot more intense than what this actually is.
Right.
But
a 6-session fly tying.
6-session. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the. We'll see if I like the dark arts. I assume I will, but I've done it. I have tied flies in the past, but with no real true instruction. More just fumbling through and trying it, which I know is half the battle, anyways. But yeah, it'd be a good way to tie some flies, meet some good people, get some fishing intel for the area, stuff like that. So yeah,
I believe I believe we refer to that as third space. Bro.
That's right. That's true.
Yeah. Good. Nice. Excellent.
Picking out a third space.
Sweet Georgia Brown. I like it,
Yeah,
man.
we'll see. We'll soon enough we'll be doing fly tying competitions against one another and see who comes out on top.
You'll probably quickly surpass my skills. My self-taught gnarliness. Yeah.
Don't dog yourself like that.
That's bad self-talk. You're right.
Yeah.
My fly caught me a 20-inch cutthroat when we were up in Wyoming, bro. Yes, it did.
So it sounds like you have some pretty darn good skills.
Booyah.
Yeah.
That's good.
What are you navigating?
I am navigating the ever-changing roles of my life. I have new roles. As a father, I have my I shouldn't say new roles. My roles as a father, my roles as a husband, my roles as a son are changing. They're morphing as my kids hit different new aspects of their lives. I seem to understand that my role as a mentor, as a guide, as a whatever are changing as well. So, with change in my life, as big as the changes are, with me in retirement, my wife losing children out of the house. We both are, but right, I need to be different for how I show up as a husband and helping her through it just as much as she is with me. And it's interesting to see how those roles change, like for so long, like you're in a different place. You're locked in as like toddler dad, and that lasts for a while. And then as they age, it changes. And so I'm at another aspect now with them all kind of getting out of high school, even with my youngest being a senior in high school, helping her with her next step of choosing a school and blah, blah, blah. Like my role is changing. And so it's really fascinating. And it takes a lot of navigation because the way I used to talk to them or do things is getting different, is becoming something different. So how do I do that? You know what I mean? And so, yeah, so it's really interesting stuff. But it's challenging. It's navigating because I can't show up in the same spot. Sometimes I'll say something and I'm like, man, that wasn't the right way to say that. They're not 10 anymore. You know what I mean? Like it takes that mindset. And so, yeah, the shit I think is funny, they don't. I find myself laughing at, the stuff I say more than they are. So I'm finding those.
Your dad joke powers are dwindling.
It is. It's bad. So, yeah. So I think that, I hate to say it, but some of my roles are needing some maturation. So that's a challenge for me.
Yeah, maturity is a challenge for you. So I can see that. Yeah,
it certainly is.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure you'll make it through.
Yeah, it's good. It's all good navigation. Sometimes it's brutal, but how about you? What are you navigating, brother?
I am navigating, well, the to-do list, I guess. But you know how like there's something about like doctor's appointments where you just kind of like put them off, and then all of a sudden you're like, I got to get them all done. And so I've been navigating like trying to get all these doctors, dentists, eye appointments all put into like one, like let's just get it over with type of thing. And so just the lining things up, finding the times that you can make them all work. That's what I'm navigating. Not nearly as deep or profound, but
no,
yeah.
It's like that, dude. And it's funny. It's like there are those who subscribe to the strategy of let's just bomb it all now, get it done, and then there's those who subscribe to the strategy of no, let's spread it out. It'll be less intense, right? And da. Yeah. But I sort of like the idea of like, get it all done at once. Then you got time to chill and just like enjoy and do other things that you want to, right? And you don't have to worry about them. So, yeah, I think that the strategy with which you approach those kinds of have to things in your life,
right?
Yeah, it takes navigation. It certainly does.
So it feels like I'm cramming for like a test right now in a way, but at the same time, yeah, it's just a little bit of a organizational nightmare, but we'll get through there.
Right. Good. Well, I like your approach, man. You're doing all right.
Appreciate that.
Who we got on the show today, Ed?
Well, today on the show, we have Andrew Todd, an active research biologist and aquatics expert, as well as the executive director of the fly fishing triathlon event series known as the Flyathlon, which is a delicious mixture of long-distance trail running, craft beer, and fly fishing. On the show, we talk about native trout and their future, trail running, raising awareness for water drainages and the health of the ecosystem, the future wild events he's dreaming up, and loads of other interesting stuff. So let's get into it.
Let's do it, bro.
Hey, Andrew, how are you?
Doing well. Yourself?
Doing great.
Doing great. Welcome to the show, man. Good to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Why don't you start off by giving us a little bit of background on yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm from Colorado. I was born here in Colorado. Now I live in Denver, but split my time between our house here in Denver and we have a cabin down in Westcliff, which is on the east side of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. I work as a life scientist for the federal government, but in my free time, I started back in 2016. I started a nonprofit called Running Rivers, which our primary program is called the Flyathlon, which pairs trail running, fly fishing, and craft beer into races that raise money and awareness around native fish conservation. What else? I've worked for the U.S. Geological Survey. I've worked for Trout Unlimited. I've worked for the Fish and Wildlife Service. So I'm really fish focused in my work, and have created the Flyathlon to try to extend my impact outside of my professional work as a federal scientist. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. As you might expect with the Flyathlon, I'm a trail runner, not real fast, but stubborn for sure. I would call myself an avid fly fisherman. I'm not sure how good I am, but I really, really like it. And I'm a craft beer and whiskey connoisseur. There's no arguing with my credentials there. I've put in a lot of time.
That's awesome. You have definitely combined three areas I think a lot of people would be on board with. So kudos to you for getting those three things together. How did this idea, I'm just curious, how did this idea come about? Like, is this like you were sitting around with your buddies? I'm picturing in a brewery after a long day of fishing, and you're like, yeah, dude, we should do this. I'm just curious as to how this idea of getting these three elements together, because it's brilliant.
Sure. It really just was sort of born out of things that I was doing anyway. Back when I worked for the USGS, I was a field biologist, so I was out in beautiful places. And so at the end of the day, I would run up to fish and always had craft beer in the cooler and thought, hey, this is a better triathlon than the actual triathlon. And so started putting them together. The first one was unofficial one was in 2013, where I had met with a friend who said he was also pairing these things. And so I thought, well, let's just do a race. And the first one was totally illegal, ran through wilderness. You're not supposed to have, more than 15 people and no competitive events in wilderness. But that first year we sort of did proof of concept. And then we had so much fun, I thought I could actually use it for something bigger than just recreation. And that's where we started fundraising with it in that first year of 2014. And it's been growing since. And I would push back a little. Most folks push back on me on the running part. They say I drink beer and I fish, but so we design it so that you can be successful without physically running. So.
Oh, sweet. So I could participate then. Ed's about to be running his first marathon. He's been training for. So yeah.
That's how I came across your event, and something I'm interested in one of these days participating in. I think it's an awesome concept to put those things together for sure.
Well, I'll tell you what, if I can go 26.2 miles, you sure as shit can, because it's mostly mental. Just it looks like you're putting the time in training, so now you just got to gut it out.
It is crazy how much of a mental battle it is. Just like how abusive I am to myself as I'm running around. We don't need to get into the things I say to myself as I'm 13 miles into something, but yeah, I appreciate the shining beacon of a target to hit. So
yeah, you bet.
Yeah, I'm a year and a half out of a knee replacement, so I'm not running a whole lot. Yeah, that's not my thing.
Yeah, well, so these races we really do set the cutoffs so that someone could and people do definitely walk the whole thing, and they can still be successful because we also give out awards not just for the top male and female finisher, but also for the biggest and smallest fish. So someone with like a 3-inch brook trout can still win the whole thing because then those four compete against one another we call it the Leisure Sports Olympics, which includes cornhole, and then the final is a BB rifle shootout for the grand championship. So you could be wicked slow and have a tiny fish and still win the whole thing.
Nice.
It's almost like a full heptathlon.
Yeah, it's really challenging and multidisciplinary. That's a fact.
That's spectacular. Yeah, I was looking at the videos and I saw guys shooting the little BB guns, and I was like, I wonder if that's just for fun, or if that's part of the competition. So that's great.
That's the very end, and we actually reached out to Daisy, the manufacturer of the Red Ryder, and asked if they were interested in sponsoring, and they asked us about our like safety protocols around the shootout, and they decided not to sponsor us.
That's great.
So who are you raising money for, and what's you were mentioning the conservation for native trout? Give a little bit of background on that situation.
Sure. So for the first 3 years we were doing it, we were partnering with Colorado Trout Unlimited, and so we raised money, and a lot of it went to projects through Trout Unlimited. In 2016, we created our own nonprofit, called Running Rivers, which is now what the fundraising comes through. We're still at the point. This is my. I work on Running Rivers 1 day a week on Fridays, and so I don't have the bandwidth to do. Even though I've got the skill set to do some of the work myself, I don't have the bandwidth because I still have a full-time job. So we're typically, the money that we raise, we're using to leverage for grants for work completed by other agencies, so state and federal agencies, but also other nonprofits. Like I still have a good working relationship with Trout Unlimited. So we'll raise, like this last race from last weekend, we raised $73,000 with the race, and we'll use that money to leverage to give to like Trout Unlimited to go get bigger grants to do the bigger habitat work. And typically that's what we're talking about here is native trout habitat improvement, reclamation projects. So where they're removing native or non-native fish and putting native fish back into watersheds that historically would have been the native fish. So typically right now working with agencies and other nonprofits to get the work done on the ground. But we've got a vision to, if I can ever get to the point where this could be my full-time job, for us to do some of the work ourselves.
Nice. Andrew, tell us how did you originally get into fishing? You grew up here in Denver, and so obviously you got watersheds all around you to go explore. How did that come about for you, in growing your love of fishing?
So I've got 2 older brothers and a younger sister, and as kids, my father is a pediatrician, and he had a pediatric conference every year up in Aspen, and so he would take the whole family up there. And there was a little creek called Lincoln Creek outside of Aspen that he would take us to, and in particular, one year he took us up there and we all caught a ton of fish. And he didn't tell us at the time, but he had called ahead the Division of Wildlife to find out where they were stocking. And sure enough, it was Lincoln Creek. And not only had it just been stocked, but the the stocking lever had jammed and they had dumped a whole truckload of rainbow trout into this one stretch of river that the Parks and Wildlife guy pointed him to. So my whole fishing premise or origin story is built on a lie. But I had so much fun doing that. And then as I learned more about fish and how they operate within their habitat, that's what draws me to it now, is that I find it interesting and intellectually challenging to try to anticipate where they're going to be in any conditions. And so the challenge of trying to trick a fish into eating a fly is something that appeals to me based on the knowledge I have as an aquatic biologist. I like to think I have an advantage, but it doesn't always work out that way.
Right. Those finicky fish.
Yeah. They're still living creatures who have to choose to eat, right?
Right. Indeed.
And are trout what you're primarily researching in your day job?
Yes and no. So now I work on water quality issues for the EPA, which is a broader scope of aquatic life, not just trout. When I was with the USGS, I was looking at climate change and native fish and how the warming of the planet is going to impact some of these cold water fish that operate within a very narrow thermal window. So I'd say my fisheries expertise is largely cold water fish focused, but the work that I do professionally now is broader than that.
We were just recently up on a trip up in Wyoming, and we were in Yellowstone where they had closed 3 rivers, and because of that warming of the water, and so like they shut them down totally. Are you seeing more of that happening? Does it seem like the community's responsive to that, or do you get a lot of pushback? Have you seen? I don't know if in your position, but I'm sure you probably have some experience with it. What's the pushback like on that from the community? Hopefully none, I would imagine, if we want to keep rivers safe. But selfishness gets into things sometimes. So
Yeah, from my in my role, I'm not involved with that directly, but I think that's an important challenge we have, is to educate anglers on the challenges that these fish are facing. It's not just a warming planet. It's particularly in Colorado, we're moving water all over the place, and so these rivers are often lacking the water they would have under natural conditions. And so when you do have a warm day, and whoever it is who decides to shut that fishery down, whether it's Parks and Wildlife or a local municipality, I think the job that we have to do is to educate anglers that there's a reason why that's happening, and not just to be upset about it and what a buzzkill, I can't fish today, to really understand why it's being done, and it's for the preservation of this fishery. So I think it's an education challenge.
Yeah, and I think it's a good, valuable one. Clearly I've spent my life educating, and so I think that's no different in terms of that. Because we did run into a couple of people who were like, "Why'd they shut the river down?" And it's like, well, it's because of the heat and the lack of water in it. Yeah, so fish kind of need both those
Trout
things.
Don't like hot.
That's right. So it was an interesting thing, and we ended up having to put a few extra miles on the car to get to the good fishing, but it was well worth it. So especially if you can prolong those fisheries and make them better and make them more valuable. So that's a cool aspect of it that I think we need more of in terms of that education piece.
Absolutely.
If you could snap your fingers and one thing would be changed about water quality and all of that, what would be the biggest impact you could make?
I would say I'd like to see a greater focus on native fish. And I know that's not exactly answering your question. I think we've got some tremendously unique fish species in the interior West, in the cutthroat trout and the bull trout, and yet there's still a fascination with all sorts of things non-native, whether it's rainbow trout, which I don't know if you guys have ever read the book, An Entirely Synthetic Fish. It's a great book. I may be jumping ahead onto recommendations on reading, but
awesome.
No, that's good.
It talks all about the rainbow trout and why it's in the American psyche that this is the cold water sport fish of choice, but or tiger trout, which is an entirely synthetic organism. You see all this celebration of catching a tiger trout, where like I would love to see a move towards more interest in those native fish, not excluding these strictly sport fisheries, but if we want to keep those fish on the planet, we need, more resources focused towards those natives. That's what I would snap my fingers for.
Awesome.
A lot of your work seems to be focused down kind of like in the southwest part of our state. And I'm assuming that's because you've spent a lot of time down there. How has that been? Like, I didn't even realize after just looking through some of your running river stuff and the native fish down there. How did that become kind of a focal point for that part of the state? Because it seems like a lot of your work is focused down in that part in terms of the projects you guys are doing.
So it was partially born out of the research I was doing at the USGS. So our focus was on the Rio Grande cutthroat trout, which is native to the San Luis Valley of Colorado and then northern New Mexico. And so we did this big study that kind of spanned into New Mexico, but that whole San Luis Valley where we were up in these small cutthroat trout streams, looking at stream flow as well as water temperature. And so that kind of got me really interested in that fish in particular. And so the first Flyathlon that we created when the time came was in one of those creeks. So then with the Flyathlon, our goal has been to spend the money that we raise with a given race on the fish that's native to that watershed that the race takes place in. So like the Middle Creek Flyathlon is at the north end of the San Luis Valley. So all the money raised with that over the years we're putting towards Rio Grande cutthroat trout projects within their greater native distribution. And we're actually about to double down on Rio Grande cutthroat trout because we're working to try to set up a northern New Mexico Flyathlon as well. So then we can go across the border and continue to do more for the Rio Grande cutthroat trout down on that side of the state line.
Right on. And you guys have made it all the way to Iowa. Yeah?
Yeah, that was sort of a unexpected development. So I got a call now probably 8 or 9 years ago from a guy in Iowa saying, "Can we do this here in Iowa?" And I said, "Are there trout in Iowa?" And he assured me there were. And so away they went. And he's since moved here, but a couple of other guys and their wives in Iowa have taken it and really turned it into their own thing, which is how I see this growing and creating more of an impact in other parts of the country, is not me showing up with our cutthroat trout themed race trailer and importing our vision into new parts of the country. It's people on the ground in those new parts of the country standing up for their own backyards and the fish that are native to their own backyards. And so in recent years, we've now started a race in North Carolina near Asheville, and that's a local New Belgium distributor. He's taken the lead on that. And I've gotten out for both of those to help kind of guide it and make sure it doesn't go into a ditch. But I really want people to take ownership in it and turn it into their own unique version of what we've established with the Colorado Flyathlons.
That's fantastic.
And back to that point about community, right? It's got to be a local presence that's establishing that community. Because if I come in, I don't know the first thing about trout fishing in Iowa, obviously. So I really need that authentic on the ground presence to establish an authentic community.
Right.
Absolutely. You just hit one of our trigger buzzwords there of community, and something that we're big into wanting to create are these third spaces where people can come together, much like you've done with these events and bringing people together. Why don't you give us a little bit of insight as to why that community aspect is just so important to you guys over there.
Sure, and by third spaces you mean non-family, non-work?
Correct. Yeah.
I've found that creating these communities where you're bringing in people from our Middle Creek Flyathlon brings people from around the country, but certainly from varying perspectives, and when you bring in folks from all different walks of life, frankly, I think you get that diversity of perspective that really shapes better outcomes. And then also when you get people investing in those third spaces, whatever they learn there, they're going to take back to their community and their first and second spaces, and then you can have a broader impact with the message that you're sharing in that third space. And so that's one of my favorite parts about the Flyathlon is I'm not very good at social media, but sometimes I see people that met at the Flyathlon then meeting up to go fishing or go for a run, and then they're taking the conservation message that we're advancing with the Flyathlon and taking it back to their own worlds, and that's the important offshoot of these third spaces is, yes, it's fun to get together and meet new people who have a shared interest, but also then when they go back and take some of what they've learned and make changes in their own first and second space.
Well, that's awesome. Just getting people together and then having them be able to spread that message to the people that they talk to in their first and second spaces is crucial in a way of helping grow your mission and all of that. So kudos to you for creating that.
Yeah, there seems to be this kind of combination of caring about our land and rivers and through that idea, and kind of sharing that and growing that. And so has that always been something of interest to you? Like, was that passed on from your dad or your parents, or that idea of, we need to do this collectively? And so what's the best way to go about doing that? Has that always been a passion of yours, or something that you've cherished and wanted to grow? Or did you kind of stumble into that through the work you've done?
I wouldn't say that it was directly modeled from my folks or anything, but I mean, they taught us to have an impact in the world and in whatever you're doing. And I think that oftentimes, you get this mentality that these public lands are here for us to use, and that you pay taxes and you buy a fishing license, so you should just be able to go do whatever. And I've always felt like, we can do more than that, and we need to do more than that, because the agencies that are tasked with protecting these places into perpetuity are underfunded and understaffed. And so if we just say, I bought a fishing license, or as a trail runner, you don't have to pay anything. And there was this great article in Trail Runner magazine about, essentially trail runners being freeloaders, where you can just show up to a trail and you don't have to pay anything. And that's not enough. I care too much about these spaces to just pay the $30 and call it good. So that's where, and hopefully with our model. So I don't know if I've clarified with our fundraising model for Flyathlon events is we get like 60 people to sign up, and then we incentivize them to crowdfund. So then they're going out to their friends and family, and essentially we're employing 60 people to do what I'm saying we need to do, which is do more than just the fishing license. And that's where we can turn an event into $70,000 raised. If you get everyone raising $500 and then some raising $5,000, it quickly adds up. And then not only are they're reaching out to raise money, but they're also educating their friends and family with the message of why they're raising money, that native fish are important. So the 60-person impact grows to much larger, because they're all reaching out to their communities and saying, this is important to me. And so it's a financial benefit for native fish, but it's also this educational component that that I really just think if we want these places to be around for our kids, we got to do a hell of a lot more than we're currently doing. And people say they love these places. Well, let's prove it.
Yeah, exactly. Put your feet to the fire. Let's get it going. That's great. Great model.
Yeah, it's worked out really well, and it also it engages the outdoor industry as well, and so a cooler donated by Yeti can help incentivize $4,000 or $5,000 worth of fundraising. So it asks them to put their money where their mouth is too, that they really care about these places, and we've had a lot of great response to that, and sponsors that are like, absolutely, we want to help. So
that's fantastic.
That's great. Well, we would love to not only compete in one of these events and raise money and do all that. It's definitely on the radar for sure.
Now that I know that I don't have to actually run, yeah, I'll be in.
Yeah, we need a relay event where Reid can just do the fishing and I can do the.
Not only do you not have to run, so we have at this last race we had a couple of bourbon burros in the woods, so a couple of donkeys hiked up with whiskey from one of our whiskey sponsors, and so you could take a shot and a selfie. So it's really that's another thing with these races is we've tried to, craft beer, trail running, fly fishing can all seem sort of overwhelming if you're new to them. So we've tried to step it back and say, no, you can really show up at these things. And if you don't fly fish, we've got someone out on course. We call him the fish whisperer, who, if you've never fly fished and you're going to suck, you just go right to Ben, and Ben will be patient and get you into your first fish. And then we've seen people come back years later where they've then taken the time to learn how to fish because of that experience. And so we're trying to make these things as accessible to everyone so they're not intimidated by them, for sure.
That's great.
That's awesome. I have two clarifying questions. One, is there a reason why you only can go up to 60 people?
Yeah, so that's a combination of like permitting restrictions with the permitting agencies, but also not wanting to stress out the resource. So unlike traditional fishing comps, most folks are just catching a single fish.
Yeah.
But you got 60 people descending on these creeks, and
one little creek, right?
Yeah. So it's also from a race director standpoint. Having 60 people in the woods is a lot more manageable than like 120 in the woods.
For sure.
And the fact that 60 people can raise $70,000, it makes it somewhat exclusive to get into the race, and then makes people feel ownership of the fundraising component of it as well. So we've found 60 to 70 is a good manageable number for us.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And then my other question is, Reid and I are both sober. Is there any non-alcoholic beverages that are allowed to be partaken with?
Absolutely. It's we've got Athletic Brewing has been a big sponsor over the years. Our finish line is always we've got both, and there's no pressure to just like there's no pressure to be really good at fishing. You don't have to. You can take a selfie with Bunny the Bourbon Burro without the shot. And so it's initially beer was a bigger part of, but we totally recognize that people are on different journeys, and so we've tried to downplay that in recent years, but still the Bourbon Burro is still out there if you're.
No, I think you play it up. I think it's awesome. I think we enjoy the atmosphere and hanging out. So I think it's an important part of it all.
Well, in the craft beer industry is doing really well with non-alcoholic beers. I think the amount of non-alcoholic beers that are coming out by all the different craft breweries is incredible. So back when I quit drinking, I had my choice of the three big ones. Budweiser made one, and Coors made one, and we won't even talk about Miller's Sharps beer back then. That was so disgusting, but it was so bad they quit making it.
Yeah, a quick shout out on the Athletic Brewing is also investing in outdoor spaces. They have a grant program called Two for the Trails, where they're giving I think about 2% of their proceeds they're putting towards trail projects. And another nonprofit that I'm involved with in Westcliff, we got a grant to replace all the signage along the Rainbow Trail, which is this great 100-mile long trail that had trails that were or trail signs that were falling apart. And Athletic Brewing is really putting their money where their mouth is as well when it comes to outdoor spaces. So I've been really impressed with them.
That's great. Yeah, we love their stuff. So yeah, their product's really good. Absolutely, shout out to them for sure.
Well, let's live plan a trip together. We've obviously done a lot of fishing personally out in Colorado. You as well. If we were to plan a trip with you, a 4-day, 3-night trip out there, where would you take us? Where would we fish? Where would we eat? Where would we stay?
Well, it should come as no surprise. I think South Central Colorado is a pretty good place. I would probably base out of Salida. I'd say Westcliff, but your dining options are a whole lot less in Westcliff. But Salida, I'd say, would be a good place to start. Day one, you'd probably float the Arkansas. Well, you can wade fish it too, because there's a lot of really, really great public access along the Ark. Day two would probably be a rugged hike up to a high mountain lake, either in the Sangre de Cristos or in the Collegiate Peaks that are to the west of Salida, Buena Vista. Day three would probably be down to the Rio. Be a little bit of a drive, but floating the Rio is pretty spectacular as well, near the towns of South Fork and Del Norte. But certainly I'd get you guys up to a high mountain lake to angle for some cutthroat. In terms of where to eat, I would say in Salida you've got Sweetie's Sandwich Shop. Has some of the best sandwiches out there, as well as some pretty good desserts if you're a dessert at lunch kind of guy.
Yep.
Post-fishing dinner, I really like 50 Burger. It's along Highway 50 between Salida and Poncha Springs, and they've got great burgers, chicken sandwiches, onion rings are outstanding, and then they've got some great milkshakes as well, because who doesn't need a milkshake to wash down buttermilk fried chicken sandwich and onion rings?
Yes.
In terms of where to stay, I've always stayed at my place down in Westcliff, so people really like the Mount Princeton hot springs. There's a hot springs in the north end of the San Luis Valley if you were going to drive down to the Rio Grande, called Valley View. There's two sets of hot springs. One is clothing optional, and then the other one is not. So that's a different sense of community. But I think Valley View is the one that most people are wearing clothes. And then, I've got a couple of friends in the valley that are in the Salida area that have some pretty awesome Airbnbs if you guys were interested. And then the fly shop that you should definitely reach out to is it's called the Next Eddy in Salida. It's on the main street of Salida. Colin and Sarah run that, and they come out and fish whisper at our Lake Fork Flyathlon in September. But they're awesome people, and they know that river inside and out if you're going to float the Ark.
Sweet.
What did I miss? Did I miss anything?
No, that was great. That's good. That sounds like a phenomenal trip.
Yeah. Let me say when.
When? No, this is awesome. Why don't we wrap this up with the GFW hot seat?
Sounds good.
Welcome to the GFW Hot Seat, where the name of the game is to answer the questions. And the prizes are... Wait, who said we have prizes?
Awesome. What is one thing you're currently celebrating in life?
Couple things come to mind. I mentioned, I think before we started recording, that I'm dropping my older daughter off at college. So I don't know. As a parent, you you hope that kindergarten graduation isn't the only graduation, and then high school graduation isn't the only graduation. But she's these my girls are really smart, and so it's not surprising that we're dropping them off at college. It's a little bittersweet, but we've still got the younger one who will be in high school for a couple more years. So we're celebrating that, maybe with a few tears. But and then I turned 50 in December, so I feel like I'm probably on the descending part of my physical fitness curve, and so I'm trying to push this body as far as I can in the time I've got, and before I can't run anymore. So we're trying some long distance running, fishing challenges. I've got a 66-mile, 6 different fish species challenge at the beginning of September. We call it Lucifish because it's 66.6 miles, 6 fish, 6,666 feet of climbing. So we'll see if we can get that done. We tried it in at the beginning of July up on Grand Mesa, and I came up 1 fish short, so I cut it off at 50, which is the step down. We call that one old trout. But so I'm celebrating that I can still do dumb crap like that and not fall apart, at least yet.
Those are awesome events. As I've mentioned on previous shows, I'm training for a marathon, and I'm really enjoying the sport of running more than I thought I was going to. And so we'll see once I get this marathon under my belt if getting out there on the Lusa trout is in my cards. Ultras do sound like an interesting adventure.
I tell you, from a mental health standpoint, like there's nothing like just putting your body through that, and you really can't overthink it. At a certain point in your run, you're just like, it's just the brainstem working at that point. It's just survival, and it allows you to kind of get away from all the stuff that hangs you up in the day-to-day. So I'd really recommend it. And your first step would be called Trout Man, which is a marathon and 4 different fish. And I'm happy to put you on a course. So
I'm in.
I won't say this is a gauntlet being thrown down, but maybe it is.
Hey, definitely. We'll do it.
Accepted.
Challenge accepted, and we'll
challenge accepted for Ed.
Challenge accepted for Ed, and we'll do some stuff to raise some money and get the word out there. So
awesome,
definitely.
That's fantastic. Welcome in December to the 50 Club. It's a constant thing to keep the body feeling good. It's an uphill battle, but a valuable one. Give us, and you kind of already mentioned one, but give us a piece of content that you'd recommend to our listeners.
Yeah, because this is a fly fishing focused podcast, I would say, I don't know if you guys have heard of the author Peter Heller. He's Denver based. The book I would recommend to start with is called The Dog Stars. It's kind of a post apocalyptic situation, but he incorporates fly fishing into a lot of his stories, and I just find it's a great thing to run and listen to. I would also say he's got a new book coming out tomorrow, which I'm going to download and listen to on the way out to California if my family will let me. But I just really enjoy that kind of storytelling that he puts out there. And the other author would be Cormac McCarthy, but that's a little bleaker and darker and more challenging read. But those are the 2 I've been reading recently.
Great. Definitely check those out. Yeah, those sound good. What is one of your favorite fishing memories?
I'd say my favorite fish is not fish that I caught. So we have had a family friend named Sam who had a ranch up in Montana, and so we went up to Montana to fish with him, and he had never caught a bull trout, and so we went out. He told the guide who he'd been fishing with for 17 years, I've never seen a bull trout, let alone caught a bull trout, and so we went out for the float and floating along, and Sam at this time was about 80 something, and so he's at the front of the boat, he's at the front of the boat, I'm at the back of the boat, and so he's kind of slow in casting, so I'm watching his San Juan worm, and he's letting it drift behind, going to cast, and I see this mouth come up, and it's about to crush it, and then he casts, and so I was like, oh, I can't let this go by, so I picked up the bull trout, picked his pocket, and you could tell he was excited to see a bull trout, but pissed that I stole it from him. But so then the day went on, and a guide says we're in the second to last place to fish, and so Sam hooks yet another rainbow trout, and he's kind of trying to shake it off because he wants his opportunity at a bull trout, and just then this bull trout comes up and nails the rainbow trout and holds on to it, and so Sam's falling around, and rod goes flat, and we're like, oh, we totally lost this fish, but lifts it up, there's still tension on it, and the fish isn't hooked, it's just hanging on to the rainbow trout. And so we get it close, sort of like 10-15 feet from the boat, it lets go, and there's this gasp, and everyone's upset, and so then we swing the rainbow trout around to the other side of the boat, looking down at it to see if it's alive, and that's when the bull trout comes back up and hits it again and starts shaking.
Oh man.
And
Wow.
the guide who's been guiding Sam for 17 years, whatever at the time, hands me the boat net and in slow motion says, don't fuck this up. And so I net this, and it ended up being, I think it was like a 32 inch bull trout. And Sam was beside himself, and he passed away a couple years later. But that's my favorite fish, hands down, is his bull trout for sure.
That's wild.
That's amazing.
Never hooked.
Wow. You don't
Never
get too
hooked.
many of those.
Yeah.
Never hooked. That's great. Andrew, what's one piece of advice you wish someone had given your 20-year-old self?
I guess I would say to just be authentic. The world needs more authenticity, and if you look at me, you know that I don't really always conform to what others would have me be, and I think I've found that in not in recent years, but certainly not at 20. I was still trying to play by other people's rules, and I think there's rules you should play by, but then there's a lot of gray area where I think authenticity is really important in this world, and coloring outside the lines leads to unique discoveries like the Flyathlon, and so I'd say just be genuine, be authentic.
That's a great message. Having taught middle schoolers for the better part of 20 plus years, that was always one of the big messages I tried to pass along to was being authentic, and it's such a tough time for kids, and I think now in our culture period, I think for young people especially, it's tough to be authentic with the divisive nature of things. So I love that piece of advice. That's a really good piece of advice.
Agreed. What's your definition of community?
Yeah, I thought a little bit about this one and landed on, as a scientist, I really like the ecological definition of community the best. And the dictionary has the ecological definition as a group of interdependent organisms of different species growing and living together in a specified habitat. And I think that really gets at my views on our role as humans in the native fish conservation equation. I think we need to be a part of it instead of above it, and we need to figure out how to integrate ourselves in it in a way that doesn't bring it down at all. So that might mean not spending as much time in it. That might mean investing more in its support. So I think finding a way to put ourselves in that ecological construct is critical if we want these places to remain around.
No doubt.
Fantastic.
I love the approach of coming at that from a scientific position. That was cool. So our final segment here is what we call the conversation between guests. We have a question from our previous guest, Chase Coyle over at Slayfest Fishing. And his question to you is, what is your bucket list trip and why?
Ooh, I would like to fish for taimen in Mongolia, because it's one of the biggest native fish out there, and rumor has it it's super challenging fishing. You get one or two shots at each fish, and I looked into it a little bit, and I'm about 10 grand short at the moment, but there was one that was actually hiking back up into one of these native ranges of the fish, and so I'd like to do something that combined the physical activity of hiking back in there with angling for these spectacularly large native fish of Mongolia.
That would be a wicked trip. So cool.
That's a goodie. Yeah, I think I watched a couple of YouTube videos on that, and it looked pretty amazing.
Yeah, there was a film called, I want to say it was called River Wolf, where they were tying up flies with yak hair from yaks that were just kind of wandering around, and these big like streamers with yak hair, and it was entertaining. It got me interested.
So what would be your question for our next guest?
I guess back to my definition of community, I guess my question would be, what can your next guest do to ensure that the fish and fisheries that they love will still be around in 50 years? Like what actions can that individual take now to move the needle to ensure that fishery persists? Because we got a lot of challenges coming down the pike for not just native fish, but fish in general, with climate change. And so I think that would be my question, is how do you put yourself into that equation as a positive instead of a negative?
Awesome.
Good question. That'll stump. Hopefully that doesn't stump our next guest.
or shame them. I'm not trying to shame anyone. I'm just, I really do think we need to be more active as a community, to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
100%.
Andrew's the king of laying down the gauntlet.
That's right.
You're gonna trout man ad. I'm gonna make it my mission in life.
I'm in.
Yeah. Yes. I'm in. Yes. Andrew, this has been a fantastic conversation, from a learning perspective in a growing our own perspectives. It's been super helpful and much desired and appreciated from your end. How can our listeners get in touch with you to be a part of one of these flyathlons, to help get involved? And like you said, in posing that question, how can we get a hold and be a part of it and be a part of this solution?
Sure. Well, our website is runningrivers.org, and all our events are posted up there, as well as non-event challenges, volunteer opportunities. So the other place to see where we're up to and get involved is on social media. We're at Flyathlon on both Instagram and Facebook. I don't do X anymore. I don't think I ever did, but now I definitely don't. But and then if you want to just shoot me an email, it should come as no surprise. My email is cutthroat, like the trout, at gmail.com. So happy to chat with viewers that way and get you involved and maybe stand up a flyathlon in your backyard.
Awesome.
Excellent. Well, good chat, man. It's been great getting to know you a little bit and what you guys are all about. We love the work you're doing, and definitely want to be supportive and collaborate with you guys in the future at an event, whatever we can do to kind of help spread the word for you guys.
Well, I appreciate you guys as well, and have really enjoyed. This is my best meeting of the day, hands down. So thanks for that.
Excellent. I like to be on the A list. Good stuff.
Awesome, Andrew. We'll get on the water soon and also talk as well.
Yeah, let's go cutthroat fishing. High Mountain Lakes. Bring it.
All in.
We're in.
All right,
All
man.
right. Bye, guys.
Dude, Andrew laid down the gauntlet, and now I'm going to have to run an insane amount of miles and catch
Yes, he did.
Yes, and catch a laborious amount of fish.
That's right. I like how you personalize that, and you said I'm going to, because I am definitely not. Like,
You're
that
definitely
is some
not.
insane running and fishing. Yeah. I'm in for the fishing part. Maybe he'll invent one that we can kind of do as a team.
Maybe it'll be a relay. It'll be a relay.
Right. I'll do the fishing part. No, but what a creative guy in terms of the combination of fishing, running, and drinking beers. Fantastic idea. Which I think is what that's what caught our eye, right?
Right.
About this whole thing. So yeah, what a great conversation that was.
It was. Good guy, smart guy, doing awesome things for the environment, for fish, for fisheries, and having fun doing it.
Yeah, he was definitely probably our most science-driven guy. Like, he's been doing kind of like that conservation piece and the science side of it for a long time in terms of his job and what he loves to do. But even just the focus of having native fish conservation, and I think that's kind of an interesting aspect and kind of a new aspect of getting native fish returned in conservation efforts. So I think it's really cool what they're doing.
Agreed.
One of my favorite aspects of Andrew was his advice to his 20-year-old self. And I think that aligns a lot with what I believe in, and what I try to do a lot in my teaching was, teaching kids to be authentic. And I love that advice that he gave, about, if there was one thing, just be authentic to who you are and what you value and what you believe in. And I think he exudes that just through our conversation. You can see what that guy loves, what he's all about. And, he's willing to stick to that authenticity. And I think that's what makes him so likable and so awesome.
100%. And like he's said to us and what he's created, with these third spaces and getting people out together and doing stuff and doing things that he loves. And he knows that events, not necessarily for everybody, clearly not for you because you can't run like that, but it's an event that he tailored to himself. And with that, it brings a whole community that's ultra attached to it and focused on doing those events together. I mean, that's where the magic happens when you stay true to what you love to do. That's awesome.
Right. And even, he was even like, yo, you can go, you can walk it. You don't have to run it. You could walk. And even like the dudes that come in dead last end up in the finals. So he makes it so that, even though I'm not a runner, I could still go and participate in something like that. And that was kind of cool. As well as, dude, he's spreading into other places. And I like the idea that these other events in other places, they tailor to what their needs are in terms of, the conservation efforts and those kinds of things, which I thought was really cool too. So it's not just him pushing out what he thinks, but it's other people getting involved and figuring out what they need help with and doing them. So that was really a cool thing. I mean, he's just spreading it out and got them in all over the country. So that's really cool.
Super cool.
So anything we can do to help him, grow that is awesome.
Yep. Definitely looking forward to competing in some of his events, probably next year when I'm ready, a little bit more
after
more
you run
trail
the marathon.
hardened.
Indeed.
Then I'm in. We'll definitely do something for that, raise some money and some awareness around it all, and get involved. So
Absolutely.
Really looking forward to it.
Well, great conversation. Another good episode, brother.
For sure. Love you, man.
I love you too, bro. We'll talk soon.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to visit our website, guysfishingweekend.com, to check out the GFW merch, sign up for our newsletter, and learn how to get involved with the community. We appreciate you spending even a little bit of your week with us and are glad to have you along on the journey. Stay legendary and happy fishing.